The embattled British Prime Minister Liz Truss, who's just 6 weeks into the job, faced a rowdy session of Prime Minister's Question Time today in Parliament. Despite calls for her to do so, Truss has ruled out stepping down, telling the packed House today, "I'm a fighter, not a quitter." Well, today's session comes just days after she was forced to make a humiliating U-turn and tear up her signature economic policy. Well, Truss repeated her apology today, saying that she has made mistakes.
Mr. Speaker, I am a fighter and not a quitter. I have acted in the national interest to make sure that we have economic stability.
Prime Minister.
Well, let's get more now. We can speak to France 24's Benedict Pavio in London. Benedict, it was a pretty raucous session of PMQs today by the looks of things. What's the verdict? How did Prime Minister Liz Truss get along, do you think?
Well, you're right. It was a very stormy, raucous session, I think expected to be so, since, of course, let's remember, she sacked her Chancellor, her first Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, last Friday. She appointed a new one, Jeremy Hunt, who made major ditching of the mini-budget that had only been announced by the Truss government on the 23rd of September. What we're witnessing tonight is another huge political drama in Westminster. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you how it's just got worse in the last half an hour. It's been another extraordinary day. And it is very clear that as we speak, Liz Truss is absolutely battling to save her premiership. She apologised during Prime Minister's questions for the mistakes she had made as she faced MPs since that ditching of almost all her tax plans. But the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, of course, the Labour Party riding high in the polls by about a 30-point majority ahead of the governing Conservatives. So Keir Starmer said the Conservatives had lost economic credibility that had gone after her plans had ended in disaster. He called on Liz Truss to resign. He said she crashed the economy and said, why was she still here? That's when she came up with this line, which was one from years ago from another minister, "I'm a fighter, not a quitter." But then Sir Keir said Labour was a government in waiting, while the Conservatives were an opposition in waiting. And then another joke at the Prime Minister's expense. Sir Keir Starmer said, a book is being written about Liz Truss, PM. It says out by Christmas. Is that the release date or the title? Asked Starmer.
Goodness, so they're having a bit of fun at his expense. And just tell us a little bit more about today's other high-profile resignation, which is the other big story of the day, the Interior Minister or the Home Secretary.
Yes, so suddenly there was a cancellation this afternoon by Liz Truss of a visit she was supposed to do at a factory, and we didn't know why. What transpired was that the Interior Minister, the Home Secretary Suella Braverman, had actually quit after a face-to-face meeting with her boss, Liz Truss. Now, officially, that resignation is because of Ms. Braverman sending out wrongly from her personal email an official document. So that is a clear breach of the ministerial rules. But in a blistering resignation letter, she said that the government needed to rely on people accepting responsibility for their mistakes. Also said pretending we haven't made mistakes and hoping that things will magically come right is not serious politics. It's being described as a hand grenade against Liz Truss. She also said in that resignation letter that she was concerned about broken pledges by the Conservative Party, by this government, and the direction of the current government. Now, she's been replaced by somebody who is very experienced, the former Transport Minister, Grant Shapps. But tonight there's been chaos in Parliament because we now know it's been confirmed the Chief Whip, Wendy Morton, has resigned. Her Deputy, Craig Whittaker, has also resigned. There have been scenes where the Deputy Prime Minister, allegedly, and another minister, Jacob Rees-Mogg, shoved, forced a Tory MP into voting one way, voting, therefore, for the government. And there are scenes and demands for an inquiry. And Chris Bryant, the Labour MP, has described and taken a photo of these shambolic scenes. So if it could get any worse for Liz Truss and her government, it seems like a government in complete meltdown, an atmosphere that is incredibly febrile. The only thing saving Liz Truss right now is that there's no unity, obvious candidate that they can have a coronation for. But the biggest talk now is that Liz Truss could be gone in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Benedict Pavio in London, thank you very much indeed for that update.